This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free, and it goes to Gibbs wide.
First time we've seen them attack them, and there's Brandon! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robinson do. Taylor one, he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic! Here's Bob Williams. He's through here! And in the end, Forrest will say it doesn't matter how you play as long as you win it. Yeah!
Hello and welcome to this preview edition of Red Side Le Trent as we look ahead to Forest's last home game of the season, and the penultimate game in the Premier League campaign as we host Chelsea. And we're delighted to be joined by Louis Beneventi. Is that how to pronounce it? Beneventi, who's from the Chelsea Echo podcast. So welcome, Louis.
Yeah, Louis Beneventi. Hello.
Lovely to have you.
Hello, how you doing?
Me and Louis know each other because we did the Wolves charity game last year. Louis was our manager. He was Mourinho for the day as we won 2-1. And hopefully we can repeat that again this year. But I'm also joined by Adam Wicklow as well. So, yeah, we got a full preview house pretty much. Adam. So, Louis, Chelsea this season's been a interesting
basket
campaign.
Case.
Yeah. Very interesting season.
You're
It's
telling
picked
me.
up a lot recently, though, especially at home. Obviously, now to the point where Chelsea look actually good shout for at least Conference League and 7th. How have you sort of felt about this season? How have you sort of found the recent transformation?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely fair to say. I think the biggest issue with Chelsea this season has been the fact that there's been this project, but then a lot of the targets that are also put in place are not project targets, but then they're saying we need to be patient for a project. So there's not really been a clear plan at all, really, which is why people have really struggled to get behind it. I don't think that was aided by the lack of cultural understanding, shall we say, in the hiring of Mauricio Pochettino. But I think I can only speak for myself. If he became the Chelsea manager, he's the Chelsea manager. I'm not going to say he's the Spurs manager or this sort of stuff. The only thing that worries me is the Spursy mentality, which we have seen on a few occasions this season. But having said that, if you said to me at the beginning of the season, you want to see a consistent rise in progress, you want to see better performances, and you want to see a manager who can coach young kids and get the best out of them, he's ticked those boxes. I think his understanding of the fans leaves a lot to be desired sometimes, but that's by the by. But yeah, this season's been insane. It's been nuts, and the fact that with 3 games to go, we potentially, I say potentially, in the driver's seat for Conference League, only because with the with the FA Cup final, I know Man United are playing Man City, but it's the FA Cup. I'm not going to write anything off there, but where we could qualify for Conference League. I don't think Europa League's plausible, purely because I think Newcastle have just got that little bit of a cushion. But it is, I'd say, one tough game for me. I think you guys are probably going to be the toughest, especially because it's away. And you guys, you're not. I think you're pretty much safe now, aren't you? But it's kind of a case of you've just got those little bits. Oh, I mean, come on, you are. You're pretty much there. You'll be all right.
No.
You'll be all right. But it's not one of those situations where you've got that, and then you've got, I think, Brighton are on the beach, and that's ironic. And then obviously final day of the season, it's going to be Bournemouth also on the beach, which is also ironic because they're both seaside towns. Oh, geography. But yeah, no. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But this season, I just want it to end there. I just want to know where the position is. I want to know the final table and just go, right, that's that done. Can we move on now, please?
Yeah, I think we can resonate with you there. Absolutely.
Do you know with I don't know if you've seen it, Louis. You probably would have, but Rory Jennings is obviously quite a high profile Chelsea supporter, and has got a segment on TalkSport. No idea how, because some of the waffle he comes out with is unbelievable. But he went obviously viral for at the start of the season saying Mauricio Pochettino is like the best thing since sliced bread. And then as the video goes on, he gets progressively more hated towards him. What's your progression been through the season regarding Mauricio Pochettino? Because and this is also another extra question to answer, but do you think if he'd won the League Cup final, it might have gave him a little bit more leeway in some regards to Chelsea supporters?
Look, I don't speak for everybody, and I never will. I think that's ludicrous. There's sensationalism and there's certain other things. I don't sit in that camp, or at least try not to. There are times, because I am a football fan, where I have flipped out after the game, but that's purely because your emotions are attached to it, and then after that, you kind of try and relax a little bit. For me, there was a couple of points where I was just done with it all. But then at the same time is, okay, who'd you get in? Oh, just go get Mourinho. Right, okay. Would he work with these sporting directors? No. Would he work with this ownership as they are currently modelled? No. Okay, so what are you going to do then? Sack him? The structure was all over the place. There has been some absolute trouncings. Obviously, our home form's been pretty good. Away form, maybe more questionable. Definitely after the Emirates. Now, outside of that, it's kind of a case of, look, season, and I just want to see the club make their decision. I do think in Thomas Tuchel linked with the Manchester United job and still wanting to come back to Chelsea, my heart is going, get him back, but my head is going, we've seen the progress. Do you want to change where we already are again? Do you want to figure out what the situation is and just sort of let Pochettino run out his contract and maybe see someone? It's a tough one. But look, for me, I'm just taking it a game at a time. I'm not looking at it out. I think, like I said, there's definitely room for improvement in terms of his relationship with the fans. I think Chelsea fans resonate a lot more with passion merchants, especially over the past years. I think you look at Mourinho, you look at Conte, for example, Thomas Tuchel, another one, when fans were back in stadiums, just really connected with us. And even when we weren't in stadiums and when all the stuff was going on in terms of the Abramovich takeover, he led the club with such poise and decor, and also united people. I always think about the 7-seater car comment, can't take a plane, we'll take a coach. You can't take a coach, we'll take a car and I'll drive it. It's like, do you know what? I respect that a lot because it's someone who wants to win and he cares about what he's doing. That's not me saying that Pochettino doesn't care, but he is not as fiery. And I don't think that Chelsea fans appreciate managers like that as much. I mean, you look at Luis Felipe Scolari in the past, Andre Villas-Boas, Mauricio Sarri, I think are three very good examples of coaches which are maybe far more measured that the club's fans don't really connect with. But I mean, having said that, it's just a case of, like I said, taking each game as it comes, and we'll see what happens this season.
I think what strikes me the most is that amongst this upward trend, if you like, for Chelsea, because there has been an upward trend recently, especially at Stamford Bridge, but it just seems like you're almost two different teams, which obviously it's very similar to Forest last season. Forest at home were like a colossus, and very few teams could get the better of us. And it seems since really, I think, since the turn of the year, Chelsea at Stamford Bridge have been very much like the Chelsea of old, really. You go to Stamford Bridge, you don't expect anything. Chelsea normally turn up, get a goal. I mean, as West Ham found out the weekends, despite Chelsea having 14 injuries, they just absolutely battered them. And Spurs a few days before that. But away from home seems very different. Obviously, drawing with Sheffield United, like I said, the Arsenal game, the capitulation there, for example. And obviously, you won at Spurs, but that was a bit dodgy with 10 men, 5 men even. So, what do you think is going wrong? Why are you so good at home and not so good away?
I don't have a clue, Christian. I am the completely wrong person to ask. I think it's just because it's a young team. I think it's when you're at home, you have those home comforts, and when you're away, the dressing rooms are smaller. It's much tighter. We discovered that ourselves when we did the Wolves charity match last year, really tight dressing room, things weren't working. I noticed it straight away. There was a bit of bog roll down the toilet, trying to make it more uncomfortable for people. It's a situation where I think when you're away from home, it's just learning about how to deal with those crowds, especially at the elite level. I don't know what else it could be. I try and think of other things, but I generally think it could simply only be the lack of home comfort. But at the same time, these are professional players, and I think that's just a easy cop out. So, like I said, the easiest answer, lads, is I don't have a clue. I couldn't tell you. That's been the case with Chelsea a lot of the season. What's going wrong? Just everything. It'll be. It's like when you go to a new flat, right? You got a dodgy landlord. The door's not working. Okay, so they'll fix the door, but then the fuse will go in something, and then this will change, and then the toilet will be ruined. There'll be something that just trickles down. I could not tell you.
I think at least the one thing that's been fairly consistent this season, Louis, is the emergence of Cole Palmer, who, went to Chelsea for near enough 50 million. And I was a bit like, I kind of looked at it, kind of stood off jumped out at me from the page sort of thing when you see that kind of figure for a young lad who's not played a lot of football for Man City. But bloody hell, has he shown his worth this season? I was close to getting top scorer this season. If Haaland wasn't such a freak, then he probably would get it.
Yeah, no, I think I was one which was slightly confused when we signed him. I wasn't sure about it. Obviously, I saw there was a great talent there, but I thought £40 million for someone who's had very few Premier League minutes, it was something which caught me off guard. But then you do a bit of digging, and it was Joe Shields who brought him to the club. Now, Joe Shields kind of been brought in from Man City as one of the major scouts to help Chelsea develop. So he's brought us Romeo Lavia as well as another player. And obviously, those are two players that are highly touted. And it was Joe Shields' influence which actually brought them to the club, because Cole Palmer was going to be going to Burnley on loan, and Romeo Lavia was going to go to Liverpool. And then Joe Shields kind of just picked up the phone and went, "Lads, you sure you don't fancy the King's Road?" It's like, yeah, all right. Spoons might be a bit more expensive in Battersea, but you know what? We'll do it. May as well. But yeah, he's been. I don't know where we'd be without him. He has been amazing, and we were having a big discussion after the West Ham game, actually, in our post-match space, our final score show, and the conversation started of he might be Chelsea's best signing since Eden Hazard, in terms of how important he is and the quality of player we've got. And it's, again, one of the very few occasions I look at with all these signings and go, thank Christ for long contracts, because nobody is going to be touching him for at least 2-3 years. So we can enjoy Cole Palmer in all his glory at Chelsea for a little bit longer. I hope he continues this form next year. I'm a natural pessimist, so part of me looks and goes, he might drop off a little bit, but that's purely because people expect a certain level from him, and then maybe he won't reach it or something happen, because this year he's played with no fear and he's got no problems at all. But I think that's me just building the safety net. He's definitely our most important player. He's so silky, so intelligent. And like I said, plays with no fear, and he's a real leader in the team. Where was obviously the penalty incident at Everton? I think Dele Alli made a very good comment where he was saying, all those lads were fighting over a penalty when it was 4-0. Where were they when it was to equalise against Manchester City? If you talk about stories and him stepping up against his former club, etc., etc., they call him Cold Palmer for a reason. And he's just absolutely unbelievable.
No, one of my mates, obviously a friend of the pod as well, for our pod, Dave, he's done our last 4 Chelsea previews, 3 Chelsea previews he's done for us.
3. This is our 4th time we're playing them. So
that's it. Yeah. Because he made the comment about Soccer and Patrick, didn't he? And he was saying that he's been a season ticket holder since like 2004, 2005, that sort of time. Maybe actually before that even. And he was saying that Palmer's the only one in this current team that could probably get into the more successful sides from the Abramovich era. and he said he's just very, very like much like you, just like dumbfounded at where Chelsea would be without him. And it's especially weird because I know recently there's a big debate about this one as well, about the whole Fernandes and Caicedo argument, because Dave's been saying he reckons that they can't play together for whatever reason, and one is better without the other. And obviously in recent weeks, Caicedo, where he's been without obviously Enzo, Chelsea have looked phenomenal, especially in midfield. Why do you think that is? Because I find it weird with Enzo, because it seemed like at first he was sort of brought in to replace Fabregas, where he sort of like to try and pick the lock from teams who sort of sat in, and then it ended up being basically a Jorginho replacement, and it just seems like no one really knows where to put him, which is quite concerning. Bear only costs 100 million.
I think they can play together. I just think it's the strategy from the sporting directors which has cost both of them the quality which we know they have. Also, let's not forget that for the vast majority of the season, Enzo Fernandez has been playing with a hernia. So now he's had that operation. That if it still doesn't work in January next year and there's been no injuries, which with Chelsea is very unlikely, if we can have a conversation and go, what's the situation there? And, maybe it is a case of analysing it. But look, I think that Moises Caicedo is much more of an interceptive midfielder. I was actually having a conversation with a former Brighton player who trained with Caicedo and said, look, that Chelsea are losing him. Chelsea are using him wrong. Excuse me. And he is someone who is far more aggressive, likes to make those vertical passes, really go up the pitch. Almost like, I think it's a lazy comparison, but how Kante played under Sarri, where he was that player who just ran around, won everything, and played it off to those players. I think that Fernandes is someone who maybe sits a little bit behind that and does pick the lock. We've seen him do that last season. We saw him do it at the beginning of the season as well. What Chelsea need is an actual out-and-out defensive midfielder. And all the conversations in the summer, and I was led to be proved right, as I often am when I talk about Chelsea transfers. People were saying, look, Moises Caicedo, great player. We'll just play him at number 6. I'm like, well, that's just not his position. Yeah, but he can do it. This is the problem we had with shoehorning players in, and we paid £115 million for a player who can do it. Not their specialty, can do it. Do you know how ridiculous that is? It's like spending that much money, just be like, do you know what? I really fancy this gold shelf, but you're not going to see it. I'll be fine. It is what it is. It's like, what's the point? I think for me, I'm looking at it in the summer, and I'd love to see Chelsea sign an out-and-out defensive midfielder, general. Like I personally love Japolini from Fulham. That'd be my ideal signing. You'd have him sit, and you'd let those two just run riot, let them do their thing. Because again, Romeo Lavia is not a defensive midfielder. No, but everyone will say, well, he's going to come into the team and that's what he'll do. Okay, we paid £60 million for can do rather than will do, is their specialty, what they do. It's a waste of time. Again, it's just down to the sporting directors who don't have a Scooby. That's my problem. But it's okay. What we'll do to fix the solutions, we'll sign another 12-year-old from Brazil for £5.5 million plus 7 million in bonuses plus an actual fee of £350 million on a 17 million year contract. It's all good, guys. Don't worry about it.
I did notice your concern about the Estavio sign. Is that his name? That little 17-year-old Brazilian. I saw you. It was the Ukrainian guy I saw you put on Twitter. You were like, he's 21. Great.
It's like everyone's sort of sitting there and it's going, yeah, well, Cole Palmer's 21. Yeah, but Cole Palmer is a very rare exception in terms of everyone we've signed. Cole Palmer is also a right winger who's left-footed. So is Noni Madueke. So is Amari Hutchinson. So is this Estavio guy. So is this Angelo guy we've got on loan at Strasbourg. So is Elise, who we're being linked with. He's looking like he might potentially come to Chelsea as well. So that's 6 left-footed right wingers. But we don't have a defensive midfielder who allows our most expensive signings to flourish. We haven't replaced our centre-back in Thiago Silva, who's leaving, who is a leader in the team. We're going to replace him with another, apparently, 18-year-old from Brazil. It's like, lads, look, I appreciate you want to stockpile talent. I know you want to have some really great young players, but Jesus Christ, what are you doing? Like, it doesn't take a genius to see that you are absolutely messing this up. Just, I don't get it. It makes no sense to me.
Oh, and if you also follow our colleague Nathan Joyce, who's also a Forest fan and he's big into the South American market, Louis. Kendry Praz looks like a decent signing as well.
Oh, sorry, there's another one. There we go. Oh, that's another right winger who's left-footed. Fuck no.
He's have a whole team of them with like England's right backs all over again.
You kind of shoehorn into a good point because obviously you talked about finances and signing players. I mean, the whole Chelsea debacle of selling your 2 hotels to yourselves is a new one as well. I mean, that sounds a bit like
a debacle. I think it's genius. What are you talking about?
It sounds like our A52 neighbours who tried to sell their stadium to themselves as well, or whatever they were doing. Like, what obviously had a huge influx of in and out last summer. It's kind of like you're the Harrods and we're kind of like the Etsy version of each other. Like, we're just all buying a lot of stuff. Your stuff is a lot more expensive than our stuff, though. Surely you want a slightly quieter summer, or at least like, I don't know, a streamlining of it, because that's what we want as well.
Yeah, no, I think that there's definitely players which need to go, and there's definitely an excuse not to sign people. Chelsea need, for me this summer, if we're going to make signings, maximum of 3. Like, I think, and it's a case if you need actual quality with experience in that spine. Now, for me, I'd love to see, like I said, João Palhinha was one for me. I was looking, we need a centre back. I'd love Mark Gahey back at Chelsea, or I love Max Kilman at Wolves. And then we need a centre forward. And I'm a big fan of Ivan Toney. So, that those would be my 3. But what's going to happen is we're going to spend, I think it's 35 million on this Esteval Willian. So that's 35 million pounds, which we need to find. So that means we're probably going to sell an academy product who I think, look, this is probably going to be a comment which people kind of shake their heads at because they're not shiny new toys. They're definitely having the Chelsea community anyway. I think a lot of the academy graduates that come out of Chelsea are actually better than some of the players who brought in. I look at Disasi. Is Levi Colwill a better centre back than him? Yes. Is Trevor Chalobah a better centre back than him? Yes. Okay, but we've signed Disasi and Badir Shil for a combined 70 million or 60 million. You've then got Ian Matson playing left back. Who's obviously just reached the Champions League final? Is he better than Cucurella? Yes. Obviously, they're quite slightly different, and Cucurella has been much better recently, but that's 60 million pounds we spent. Enzo Fernandez, Caicedo are probably 2 that I'll move out of the conversation, as I did Malo Gusto and Cole Palmer. But the rest of our signings have all been extremely questionable. It's been 40, 50 million pounds on players which aren't proven. We've been linked with this Esteval Willian since December. At the point that we were looking at spending 35 million pounds in December, he'd played 23 senior minutes. 23, and we were spending 35 million quid on him. Do I have mug written on my forehead? Because it looks like anyone who sees Chelsea at the minute, they'll go, "Oh yeah, come have a look at our players. How much were we offering to Sheffield Wednesday for?" That was about 5 million. Yeah, so can we have about £7.5 million plus everything else in add-ons? Yeah, cool. So just whack on a premium for Chelsea. I mean, actually, no, it wouldn't even be 7.5 million. Probably about 35 million. Let's just it's just like we're turning into what United were, except we're doing it with people I worry haven't been DBS checked. That's my situation. I'm looking at them. It just makes no sense to me. I don't get it. Honestly, I could go on about this for hours, lads. It's a joke.
The sad reality for me is that obviously, because like you said, obviously there is an actual home association you have with someone from the academy. Obviously we had it like with Brennan Johnson. Obviously, like there's a lot of fans who have it with, like, for example, Joe Worrell before he did what he did and went to Turkey, and obviously Ryan Yates, who as much as he polarizes opinion, everyone's very much very proud of his progression and don't mind having him around, sort of thing. But I guess like when you look at sort of how much you've spent and obviously where you could finish, it just seems like, I know obviously Matson and Hall could go. and that could be about 60 million combined for them to Gallagher.
Yeah.
But you look at Gallagher. I was at the Spurs game recently. Was David has fair ticket. You saw the tifo for Gallagher, for example, stuff like that. You just feel like it was quite sad looking at it, thinking like they're gonna have to sell this guy to buy around the random players that aren't gonna have the same heart and desire or ability as Gallagher. And for what? Like the whole thing just seemed the Clear Lake strategy seems like it's like FM on steroids, isn't it? Really, but just without the virtual success.
No, it is FN. It really is. It makes no sense. And I like you said that Conor Gallagher, he does divide opinion. I think at Chelsea, big thing. Well, in Chelsea Twitter, especially, I'd say since Sarri, there's been a lot of division. You know, you get people who are called the Cobham sexuals, which I am very much a big fan. Where I just love players coming through the academy and having an identity and an understanding of the club. But there's somebody who wants another 12-year-old from Brazil.
Louis, I mean, a success story out of your academy has actually been a beneficial one for Forest this season, as you've seen in Callum Hudson-Odoi scoring 2 goals at the weekend, his 7th of the season. What have you made of him coming to us and from afar?
Good for him. I think that he had plenty of opportunities at Chelsea to try and prove himself. He didn't take them all. He very much moaned about not being able to play certain positions or not doing certain things. He was on $100,000 a week. He had a couple of years left on his deal. Wasn't working out. Thanks, Callum. We should have taken the money from Bayern when it was offered to us. That's kind of where I'm sitting with him. He's been great this year. People are comparing him to Mudryk, obviously saying, we should have kept him because of X, Y, and Z. He's one of the very few examples I look at from the academy where I go, I don't actually care that much. He's done really well. And the irony is probably as soon as I say that, he's going to bang one in the top corner against us on Saturday. Yeah. But it's good for him. He's been doing really well, and it's good to see that he's found somewhere he can try and recapture that form and recapture that player that we all knew that he could be.
No, it's very interesting because I mean Dave felt fairly similar. Because I also wonder if he'd maybe come in, say, 5 years later, like where it is now, for example, he was bursting through like Gilchrist, for example. Now I think the perception might be a bit different. But I think because he was obviously thrown into a team where it was full of winners, Chelsea were winning everything pretty much. The expectation was so much higher. Obviously, if he came through the academy then, I mean, really the bar was set by people like John Terry, for example, where you had to be at like an elite level to come through his academy. Whereas now it seems a bit different. And obviously Reece James is maybe the exception to that rule, but it does seem as the ones who have come through are given a bit more rope. Like your Prohers, for example, they're given a bit more like leeway. So I do wonder if that's the case. But yeah, Dave said the same thing. He was like, like all things considered, I'm not upset we sold him, but we compared to Mudryk, because obviously a bit frustrating. But moving ahead to Saturday or Sunday. How are you feeling about the game? Obviously, I know you said earlier you think it's one of your tougher tests because it's away. But how do you think the game's going to go? And how much do you think as well that, because obviously we're a later kickoff, how much do you think the earlier results will have an impact on the game?
I hadn't even thought about that. That's definitely something else which made me panic even more. So thanks for that, Christian. Look, I think that could play into the lads' minds, but I think it's just about playing what's in front of you. I'm like I said, the earlier kickoffs could see you guys be safe, basically, if we're being real. I think you're going to be safe regardless. I don't think Burnley or Luton have got it in the tank. But I do think that we need to approach this match with caution, because, like you said, your home form last season was spectacular, and you beat us earlier in the season. Now, whether you deserved it or not is another conversation, but it doesn't matter. You got the points, we didn't, and you guys been a bit of a bogey team for us. So, I'm very much looking at this going, can we just go and pick up 3 points? It's a cliche, and I know Brian's gun loves a good cliche. Every match is a cup final now, so it's a case of we just have to make sure that we do everything we can to get the result. And as we say now, it's a basket case of a season. I thought we'd get battered by West Ham, right? And then we went and battered them 5-0. And then I thought we might give Arsenal a bit of a test. We got battered by them 5-0. So for all intents and purposes, you could batter us 5-0, and I bloody hope you don't. At the end of the day, it's just a case of I just want us to go and pick up 3 points and come home. I might have a night out at Oceania, who knows? But outside of that, I just want to get home.
What sort of team do you think you'll be expected to put out, Louis?
It depends on their Bupa healthcare plans. So I couldn't actually tell you right now. I think we'll probably see Malo Gusto back. A good thing is that a lot of players that were unfit are now all coming back just when we need them, really. So I reckon we could see Nkunku starting, which would be very interesting. I think it's probably going to be Petrovic, Silva, Badiashile. I reckon it'll be. I could see him whacking Colwell in at left back. I really could. Although Cucurella has been phenomenal. To be honest, I think that actually, that's a load of rubbish. I reckon the back line will be the same. So you're going to see Cucurella, Badiashile, Silva, and actually probably might see Gusto at right back. I reckon you'll see a midfield three of Gallagher, Caicedo, Palmer. You'll see. I reckon Nkunku will come off the bench. You'll see Madueke on the right. You'll see Mudryk on the left, and you'll see Jackson up front. That's what I reckon it'll be. Or it'll be Jackson on the left instead of Mudryk and Nkunku up front.
Interesting. I mean, just before we get to predictions, obviously, I did ask Dave just for his sort of preview. He says, I think a lot will depend on what happens in Luton's and Burnley's matches beforehand. If those results go Forest's way, then that would surely impact the intensity of their play. But assuming Forest will have something to play for, I think Chelsea's lack of away form, combined with a vociferous home crowd, I could see a 2-1 Forest win. However, Chelsea are looking much more improved, especially recently. If we could get a score prediction from you, Louis, what would you go for?
I don't do score predictions because every time I do them, it kind of all goes a bit wrong. I'll
definitely do one then.
No, you tip us to win now.
Oh no. I think it's got Desmond written all over it. I really do.
I went for one.
I'll take that.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah. I think a draw for us it means we're safe. So I take that all day.
Yeah, I know you bloody would. I wouldn't, but is what it is.
Oh dear. Louis, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Appreciate
it. And I'll see you again very shortly for the charity game at Molineux. And
yeah,
obviously, as for us, we'll have our full review after the Chelsea game on Sunday morning, I presume. And yeah, hopefully we've got some survival to talk about. But yes, until then, come on, you Reds.